Why it is important for maximum development that we work muscles from multiple angles. All right, guys, I'm going to chat with you guys and gals today about this. And I want to make some stuff clear. I am not saying that you can't get big on basic exercises. I'm not saying a person can't build a pretty good base on basic exercises, even if they're only doing, one exercise per muscle group. What do I mean? Squats, bench press, deadlift, chin-ups. Okay, so if you do the big three in chin-ups, for example, you'll obviously gain a pretty good amount of size. All right, gain a pretty good amount of size, but a few problems we start to run into. We run into things like recovery problems, we run into overuse problems, and then we run into the issue of you just can't fully develop a muscle off of a single exercise usually. And that's been pretty well supported in the scientific literature. So this is something that a lot of really old school bodybuilders figured out even in the 50s. 50s and 60s they knew this, and it's been more or less proven in the lab. Okay, so some things to think about with that of why we want these multiple exercises and these angles. And again, I'm not saying a person can't build a solid base off the basics, and I'm not saying to take the basics out, because it seems like when these topics come up and we bring these things up, people start saying, well, I don't need the basics at all. I can just do all these smaller movements and machine movements. And if you're natural, I don't think you're going to get the best results doing that over time. You're going to be leaving a lot out, because I think we do need those basics. So I want to reiterate that. And even I include those basics. I squat, bench, and deadlift pretty much every single week. Okay? Even though you see me doing 3 different types of curls in this video. So what's going on with that? Why do we need to do this? Well, when you start looking at a lot of the studies, we start finding that when we do different exercises, just due to the planes and angles involved, and yes, that includes even machines, it includes the way the joints move. A lot of your muscles have different muscle fibers that are only really activated through certain parts of a joint range of motion. Okay, and then when you factor in that most of the muscles in your body work across multiple joints, right? Biceps, for example. A lot of people are unaware that, yes, the bicep obviously, flexes the elbow. That's its primary job, but it's also responsible for extension of the shoulder, at least the first 30 degrees. And there are muscle fibers in the bicep that probably are only related to that. And we get into the issue of where the tension is placed in different parts of the movement as far as the stretch and the contraction. You're going to find that certain exercises build the lower or the upper half of the bicep slightly more when it's been studied in the lab. Like when they're compared in a one-on-one and MRIs are done at these different parts of a muscle, when they're compared, they do work differently. Same thing with your chest, upper and lower chest. Same thing with your quads, your glutes. Okay, so you see me doing quad and glute stuff in here too. I'm doing back squats, belt squats, and then I'm doing weighted sissy squats. Okay, different variations of these movements. You're going to find different parts of the quads work a little bit differently. Quads got 4 different heads. They work differently, and when they are looked at in studies, yeah, these muscles do the same thing. I mean, triceps another perfect example. Pressing in general tends to build the lateral head the most in studies, at least studies looking at novice lifters, and extensions build the long head the most. They both build all the heads of the tricep. It's just that when it's compared, the different head grows faster if you only do one or the other. All right, so you have all of that to look at, and then we say, well, what happens when we do multiple exercises and compare it to one exercise? Well, you kind of see exactly what you'd expect to see. You see more muscle growth. Now, and people say, well, yeah, because you're training more, but no, we're not talking about when you train more. We're talking about they've taken studies to where you do 6 sets a week total for a muscle, like sets to failure. You do all 6 of one exercise versus doing 3 sets of one exercise and 3 sets of another exercise. When that's been looked at in the lab, you usually see a little more muscle growth in the 2 different exercises. They haven't done more work. So that's very much a point I want to make with this. So I mean, even if you look at what I did during the workout there for those curls, I did 9 sets of curls on my arm day. Now, obviously, biceps get worked a little bit on back day, but I did 3 completely different types of curls. Notice they were very different types of curls. Okay, you'll see them again here because my biceps are lagging, my arms are my least developed muscle, so I've started doing this sort of stuff now. All right, notice I'm doing a strict straight bar curl. Right, notice where the angles are. And we do a preacher curl, and then we do an incline curl. Notice these are all exact opposites in terms of shoulder position, movement, everything else. The preacher curl and the incline are pretty much exact opposites as to where the tension is placed on the spectrum. That's a great combination. But then I'm doing also a big movement that is kind of a mix in between the two, right? Because notice the shoulder position relative to the torso, right, is pretty much straight up and down, and it moves forward a little bit on the barbell curl. Notice the preacher curl, it's way out in front. So again, it places that torque at a different place in terms of where the shoulder is put, where the stretch is in place on the bicep. It changes stuff a little bit, and they're quite a bit different. So they've seen at least one study comparing the incline versus the preacher curl. The preacher curl built the lower bicep more. And as you might expect, then the incline curl tended to build the upper part of the bicep a little bit more. Okay? So see how if you combine that together, what you're getting? Whereas in the other is just a general purpose exercise for the whole bicep. Keeping in mind, of course, the brachialis and other stuff are involved with all of this. But you guys get the idea. So when these studies have compared things, that's generally what they found. Because at every single set that you do of an exercise, the training response gets lower and lower. In other words, you don't gain triple the muscle because you did 3 sets versus 1. Okay? It's a small amount more muscle. But what ends up happening, if you think about the fact that over multiple sets, we probably get most of what we're going to get out of that exercise. When we add another exercise in, those other parts of the muscle that don't grow as much from the one you did, they now get worked effectively. Again, assuming it's a volume you can recover from and handle, and it's a volume that's still stimulating growth, meaning we can also reach a point where in a training session to where we're not stimulating any more muscle growth, not even in the target muscle, but even through the whole body. When volumes get too high, our nervous system will stop recruiting the upper threshold muscle fibers, which are the ones where we get most of our growth. So again, this is why we should be looking at, for a set amount of volume, how are we doing things? How are we dividing those exercises? And it's a good idea to think in these terms. Because again, this is how you will maximize muscle growth. And that's really what we're talking about here. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.